Okay, it's been a successful start to the season, the first season in National League for Maidstone United, and it's building up towards a finale where we could well end up getting promoted or at least into the playoffs. And we're here to talk with the directors of the club, Terry Casey and Oliver Ash, about the challenges that Maidstone United might face if they do go up this season. Are you excited or worried about the prospect that you might get promoted this year?
I'm worried. Oliver's excited. It's not a worry because we can't go onto the football pitch not expecting and hoping to win. We have to go and look to win every game. If we win every game from now to the end of the season, we're in the National League. So it's that type of industry. We have to be on the front foot all the time and be positive. So it's a mixture of excitement and worry, but nothing would please us more than to get promoted out of this league in the first time we try.
Okay, you've said in the past that all the profits that have been generated by the club since we came home have been reinvested in stadium developments. Is that going to continue next year?
It certainly is, yeah. It's the only way to leave a lasting legacy at the football club, really. We've got the crazy situation of so many clubs in this particular league who've pushed all their money towards the playing squad and they've got nothing to show for it at the end of the year, and some of them haven't even got a decent place in the league to show for it. It is an absolute fact that if we'd have put the £650,000 that we spent on the East Stand extension into the playing squad, we could have a very big playing budget, but it's just not the way we're going to do things, not at this stage.
Well, we don't have any choice, really. We're not like many clubs at the National League level, like Wrexham or Halifax, that have got big grounds and they don't have the necessity to do work every time they get promoted. We have to, we've got no choice. And we know that next level up, we have to get to 4,000 capacity, and that's another 1,000. And we know how much it costs every time we increase the capacity because we've had two projects and one of them is only just finishing. So we know we can't draw breath between one season and another before having to set off and plan for another promotion. And this season we find ourselves in the enviable position of being third and with a good chance at least of being in the playoffs and perhaps a 40 or 50% chance of going up. But we have to prepare already for the possibility of going up, and that's more money needed. So any profits that we generate has to go straight back into the ground, or we stay still.
So what specifically have you got to do to the ground in order to meet these criteria?
Well, we have to get to 4,000, and there's obviously lots of ways of doing it. But in reality, the only way that we can do it within our budget, without breaking the bank that we don't even have, is to do it in a cheap and cheerful way. Now that doesn't mean it's going to look like sort of a shambles, but it means that we have to look at getting probably a terrace, and possibly in the first instance an open terrace, and probably up at the north end. That's where we're looking as a priority to build something which will give us at least 1,000 extra capacity, and will be done within a budget that we can afford to raise without too many difficulties.
And there's also been a suggestion that you might think about developing the western side of the ground by the river, which previously had been problematic. Is that something that you're now looking at?
I think we're certainly looking at it. We've certainly had indications that we might be able to buy or be given a strip of land along that west side, but there's the great debate about the pipe, the mystery pipe. I don't know what sort of pipe it is or where it is, to be honest with you, but I mean it would be
It's a water main.
It's a water main. Oh, okay, well that's good to know. So we'd have to dig that up and redirect that into somewhere else, I suppose. But the west side, the natural progression of the development with the north end would have to go first, then the west, and then the south. If we're looking at a capacity of 7,000 or 8,000 people in the future, that would be the sequence. It would be northwest. So we're looking at the west as the next development beyond the north stand development.
Okay, and what sort of timescale would that have? The north stand first, and then the west stand.
If we get promoted, we have to have the north stand, that extra capacity built by May 17.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think right. So
Yes, the North has to be done by the end of March, strictly speaking, in 2017 if we go up. Yes, in March 2017. And of course, if you don't go up this season, we've got more time, but we have to prepare the planning permission, which is why we're now getting on with it, to get planning permission applied for and then obtained, and then we will either be in a rush to build it or we'll have time to build it over at least another season.
What happens if you go up and it's not done in time?
That's a very good question. I don't know what the answer is. But we've always met all the challenges. We'll do it again. So we'll get there somehow.
Well, there'll be a huge discussion with the National League, I guess, at that point. But we're in a zone that we don't know what will happen.
We don't countenance failure around here.
Okay.
But it is a very tight schedule. It's a very tight schedule.
Yeah.
Are you worried about what it's going to cost?
Yeah, it's an issue because it's not. We don't have benefactors that are just throwing money in. It's us, not just us. Of course, it's our supporters, our sponsors, and us that are financing every development. So yeah, it's a challenge finding the money. We're looking at a ballpark figure of trying to find about £350,000, and that's in conjunction with getting a grant from the improvement fund as well. So we've got lots of numbers rattling around, and but yeah, it's a real challenge.
Is there anybody from the outside that's asking to come on board, and have you considered anybody from the outside that you might want to bring on board?
I think no to both of those questions. I don't think we've had anybody seriously looking to invest the big numbers that, and the way it's going at the moment, we wouldn't really be that interested. I mean, it works very well at the moment. We're serving the football club quite well as just the two of us raising and supplying the finances for all these developments. So I think if we're looking at the Football League, then it'd be a different issue, because we'd have to have so much more money to come into the club. But at the moment, it's within our parameters that we should be able to raise enough for the next development.
I know you said that in 2010, when you first took over, it was a different situation. You asked if there were any investors around. No one really seemed to be interested. I mean, it must be a much easier proposition to sell now than it was then.
Well, it would be if we wanted to, but I think also in 2010 we were very inexperienced, and we were to some degree making it up as we went along. It was at the beginning, and we weren't quite sure what we were going to spend, what we were going to develop, and how much money we'd need. So we were exploring very quickly lots of different options, and after that exercise didn't work, we found other ways of doing it, which ultimately were better ways. So we have a simple sort of financial structure, and as long as we can keep it that way, so much the better. And the limit will come at the ceiling of National League, but for the time being we've got plenty of time before that happens. Goodness knows there might be several seasons before we even start thinking about the Football League, and hopefully we'll have built up a little bit of a reserve by then. At the moment all the reserves are disappearing into extensions, and we are cash flow tight, and hopefully by then we'll have a slightly more relaxed scenario where we still have a good, profitable, basic business, but not quite so tight on cash flow.
Have you considered getting a supporters' contribution to this?
Yes, well we have actually. We've got a very good relationship with the supporters generally, and the Independent Supporters Club, Tim and Peter, we have regular conversations with them, and we've discussed the idea of the supporters contributing a target figure towards this sort of big extension plan, and it looks like we will do something, and that something which will enable the supporters to have a mark of their contribution in some form or other. Perhaps we'll call it the supporters terrace, the supporters stand, or make sure that each individual contribution is marked in an appropriate way. So it'll be an exciting way for the supporters to show they want to be involved in this phase of development, and for us to wrap everybody up in the latest phase of the successful evolution of the club.
Looking at other Kent clubs that have gone up to National League level, there's always a sort of assumption that when a team goes up, it's going to increase. But in Kent, if anything, it's the opposite. Teams are struggling to pull crowds in. I mean, when you look at Dover charging £15 admission, would you consider freezing the price if Maidstone went up next year, bearing in mind what's happened to their gates?
I'm not sure why their gates have fallen so badly, but the thinking is it's not price sensitive, it's more the style of football they're playing. This is what I'm hearing, where people that I know that used to go and watch Dover and had be season ticket holders, they're just coming away saying, well, the style of football is so disappointing that they can't justify it at 15 quid a go.
But it has happened elsewhere as well, though, hasn't it? I mean, it has happened with Dartford, for example. And,
yeah, because you go up and you run the risk of being bottom of the table,
Yeah.
which is what Dartford and Ebbsfleet suffered, didn't they? They were people don't like watching teams that lose every week, and I'm not sure even that was price sensitive. So I'm not trying to evade the question. I don't know the answer. If we go into the national and we play exciting football and we win 4-3 and 3-2, and we've got players out there that really generate the excitement. Plus the fact we've already got an inbuilt atmosphere here. If we found it was price sensitive, we would certainly look at it very closely. But at the moment, there's no evidence to say that people won't come down here and pay £15 and to see a higher standard of football.
Well, we haven't fixed the prices. We haven't gone that far, but I think we want to try and be competitive and not to be at the top of the range, but to be good value for money. And
Yeah.
we'll fix the pricing with that in mind, and also make sure that whether it's on the pitch or off the pitch, the entertainment and the atmosphere, but also just that there's a sort of carnival atmosphere, that people come here and they know they're going to get good entertainment, good facilities, and that they'll feel part of this, I know it's a cliche, the family club that we are, and that hopefully will offset the inevitable periods when we will play badly. We might lose more games than we used to, because we've had 4 pretty glorious years where we haven't had much more of a bad run, and that's 2 or 3 defeats, if that. So if we do all that well, and that requires a lot of work, if we do that well to make that match day experience good, we should find that we will get crowds that will continue to pick up. And we've seen, haven't we, the evolution of crowds over the last few years.
Yeah.
It's been a few hundred each season. So we're now at average of, was it 2-1, 2-1, including the evening games.
Yeah.
At conference, we're not probably going to get an average above 3,000 in National Premier, which is the current capacity. But we should still be able to get, therefore, an average going up into towards the 2,500.
Are you planning to unveil the plans for the stadium at any point to the supporters?
Yeah, we've always been very transparent. Sometimes we unveil things that are miles away from the reality because we're not quite sure what we're unveiling. But we're pretty close to getting to a stage where we could show some quite concrete ideas and proposals to the supporters. Yeah.
Well, it'll have to be soon, because we're planning to go for a planning permission, within the next few weeks. So in the course of the month of April, we'll have to apply for planning permission. So between now and then, we'll have plans and a specification that we can publicise.
Okay, one last one. We're also talking about 2 years ahead, 5 years ahead, things like that. But if we look longer ahead, 10 years ahead, something like that, do you think you'll both still be around here?
As opposed to dead.
You're talking to the wrong people.
Well, we plan to be alive, Fred, but what we're going to do, I don't know what the answer is. 10 years, it's a really... We do seem to live year by year because of the meteoric rise, the 4 glorious years that Oliver talks about. Because that means we just have to keep rethinking things, and we can't really think a whole load of years ahead. But 10 years, I'll be 75. I don't know. I'll probably forget where the ground is by then. I forget things now. I don't know what it'll be like in 10 years' time. But we'll go year by year, shall we, rather than 10 years.
I mean, I asked the question just because if you're somebody that's seen quite a lot of football administrators in the past, you might not be that confident that the FA's fit and proper person test can keep a football club out of the wrong hands.
Well,
you heard it here first, right? Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's true, but as Terry says, is that you can crystal ball gaze, but there's a possibility in 10 years' time that we won't still be involved. There is a possibility, but we both have talked about this a few times, and that whatever happens, we want to make sure that all that's been done here is a legacy for the future, and that we won't want to leave it in the wrong hands, or in the hands of somebody who might not have the football club in the town as his prime interest. So that's something that, you know,
That's a given.
if we don't do that, then all that we've done is a waste of time.
Complete waste
So
of time.
one way or the other, that is an absolute priority for us.
There's absolutely no doubt. We wouldn't, if someone was just coming waving a load of money and their agenda was wrong, or their intentions were wrong, we just simply wouldn't be interested. But if somebody came in with an absolute shed load of money because they could develop the stand, develop the ground, get us into League Two and then League One, then we wouldn't be serving the football supporters of Maidstone by ignoring that. So it depends on the quality of the person that comes in. We were at Oxford last night and they were talking about the guy that came in and looked as though he was going to transform everything for them, and he's in prison. So he's obviously, but we're not going to go to prison. So.
But at the same time, right now, we haven't got the means to do that development. So that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's why we only look a year ahead. You see, if
One
we get another
promotion
promotion on top of that, we're in a lot of trouble at that point, because we have no idea where we'd raise another couple of £1 million.
And of course, we have to change the pitch as well. That's something we haven't mentioned. But as well as the hundreds of thousands on the north stand for the next phase, is we have to replace the pitch, and that's going to be probably at least £200,000 more, for which we won't get a grant, and which we need to do at the end of next season. So that's another big chunk of funding to budget.